Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to the Babbling Pastor Podcast with Michael.
And Rob, how's it going?
This month we are going to be looking at.
I don't know. I don't know why I said that. I don't know why anyone says that. They can't answer. Like no one is gonna reach out through the screen from the ether and say, "It's going pretty good, Rob."
It's true. We should do this live, and then we can watch all the comments go.
Yeah, all the many comments. Yeah. Like, we're going to talk at least at one point this month. We're going to talk about celebrity pastors. They would have that problem. Not these guys.
You don't think Justin Bieber's popping in our comments being like, "What's up, guys?"
Well, yeah, he doesn't have anything else to do, but.
So this month we will be covering a variety of different questions and topics that came up recently, and by recently I mean last month, in the stories on the Instagram account. We're going to start though with a really interesting question that Rob has some insight on, because we're going to be talking about single pastor churches and elder-led churches. Now, we probably need to break that down a little bit, because people don't quite know what that means. So I'm going to start giving the definition with a single-led church, and then you can go into the definition of kind of what an elder-led church looks like. So, because that's the type of churches we're in. I'm in a single pastor church. He's in an elder-led church. In my church, there is a lead pastor, and the way our denomination is set up, it's not like he has ultimate power. It's not like he's Senator Palpatine, right? That's not how this is going down. But there's a board underneath him, essentially, that sort of gives direction, gives advice, but he's the pastor of the church at the end of the day. And that's kind of how the structure is set up. He doesn't have ultimate authority. That's why the board is there, but he is kind of the figurehead of the church. This is the pastor. And that's kind of a very simplistic way of how it goes down. But if somebody comes to the church and says, "Who's the pastor?" they just point at him, that guy. And then that's who people go to, because he's the pastor. Now we have a youth pastor as well. But obviously that's the same sort of dynamic, only over the youth group there. So simple breakdown of that. So elder-led, Rob, what's that look like?
Well, it looks, so some things I can identify with and are similar to what you described. So if someone walks into our church and on Sunday morning and says, "Hey, who's the pastor here?" everyone in the church is going to go, "That stupid looking dude with the beard," right? Everybody's going to point to me. But we have a team of elders who are, so we try to, this is going to sound pretentious and I don't mean for it to, but we try to be as biblical as we can as far as how we see it set up, so the word elder and the word pastor, same office, according to scripture. So the view, I'm called pastor by lots of people, but what's really going on practically is I am just another elder. I just happen to be an elder with maybe a specific spiritual gift / talent, skill set, or whatever, that the church pays me to set all of my time aside to do those things. So we have a team of elders that really complement one another, but I'm the main one with a teaching gift and shepherding gift and things like that. So the church pays me as an elder. So I'm a paid elder rather than the unpaid elders that I work with. And so we're still technically congregational as well, though, like a lot of your single pastor churches are. We just have a team of elders that the church trusts to run things, right? But the church as a whole still votes on budget and bringing on a new elder, that kind of thing. So yeah, so I don't know what you want me to get into there, but that's really what the structure is. It's not yeah, I don't know where
No, that's
you
fine.
where you
Well,
want to go with it.
there's a lot of things that on that regard that we're not going to cover today, right? So there's, like you said, there's congregationally,
Yeah.
congregation and elder, and then there's elder led specifically, and then we're not getting into any of that. Really, the questions that came from it were the power dynamics, right? So how does it it work between? So I know, for example, with the structure that I'm in, it is very congregational, but basically the board makes those decisions, and works with the pastor and for sort of what's going forward as far as what we're going to be looking at financially, what we're going to be spending our money toward, what ministries we're going to be doing. The board basically dictates that. That's why they're kind of voted on and put in those positions,
Mm-hmm.
with the pastor obviously as the one that's sort of spearheading that sort of thing. The question that came from this, though, was kind of the power structure within elder ran churches and how that works. So what if there's a 6 team of elders and 3 of them are like, yeah, we're definitely going to do this, we feel led by the Spirit, and then the other 3 are like, nah, we're not. And then there, obviously that seems like a what do they call that, stalemate, right? It's where
Yeah.
what are we doing now then? And I think that was the question that came up a lot was, okay, so if you have, I think people have this idea, and it's probably wrong, but if it's a specific pastor head church, then that pastor is the visionary and he's the one leading the charge,
Mm-hmm.
opposed to an elder-led church or that type of led church where there's a group of individuals. What happens whenever maybe they're split on a decision? And that was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
the pushback a little bit from elder-led, because they're like, well, where do you get, how do you get anywhere, especially if it's a divisive topic?
Yeah. Yeah. So we this is a good question, a good topic. We actually do have 6 elders, including me. So um, if we're talking about the traditional board, which we don't even use that word, it's a little too businessy
We do.
for me. But we're just our elder team is we don't vote, to put it bluntly. We don't. If there's some sort of matter that for legal reasons or some really obvious reasons that we need to vote, then we will, to put it on paper. But everything that we do is even that vote, that hypothetical vote, is consensus driven. It is if we have I hear what you're saying, and we've been in that. I've been in that situation before as an unpaid elder, where there was a power struggle, and these people wanted it this way, these people wanted it this way, and first of all, that means you're unhealthy in the first place as a team of elders. I mean, it just does. It's
No,
a
that's
board
a
or
very good
elders,
point.
whatever you want to say. That means that these people and these people, somebody has a my will is ultimate problem, right? Well, otherwise, most of the things that elders and or boards or deacons or whatever argue about a lot in those kind of meetings, most of them are trivial things. You're not often going to find at the local church level elders arguing about, so is the pastor going to perform this gay wedding or not, right? Most of it is smaller item, like trivial things, like how are we going to, what day are we going to do Awana this year, or you know what I mean? It's like, who cares, pick something, like what makes the most sense for the Awana director, but we do consensus. That's what we do. So, and what I mean by that is if there's a decision or an idea that gets brought up and all of us are, so I'll give you an example of a real life example. We do communion every week at our church,
Okay.
which is odd for a Baptist church.
Yeah.
And when we were talking about that, I brought it up. Our moderator, which is as businessy as I get, our moderator, I talked with him because he's my accountability guy. So we meet every week, and so I brought it up at one point to him, and we started kind of talking about it, and then we brought it to the rest of the guys, and there was some, I don't know about this at first, right? so we didn't bring it to a vote. You know what I mean? Because all the guys weren't on board,
Yeah.
and it's not a do we believe in the Trinity here thing, right? It's not a hill to die on. It's just something that I felt like it would be solid to end every week, no matter what, with the gospel, right?
Yeah.
In that, and partaking communion, right? So it was a discussion for probably a few months. We did it as a kind of trial all the way through the Advent season, so all the way through December.
That's a good time. They're already in the holidays, the whole ties in.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So long story short, if even one of the guys would have been like, I'm not feeling it, I don't think this is what we should do, then we don't do it. And then we say, okay, well, maybe it's just not time. Maybe we'll revisit it some other time, or it might be let's just go home and keep praying, and we'll figure it out, and everybody comes to the table with ideas. We want people as elders who participate and have opinions and things, but we want people to come like this with their stuff, with open hands, not like closed-fisted, like I'm ramming this thing through, right? Like that, then you don't need to be an elder. Just being real, right? That's the ability to, and I've seen this a lot in church leadership. This struggle. There always seems to be, a person or two people or half or whatever. I mean, there always seems to be some folks who just can't take no for an answer, can't put their stuff away, and table it for another time, or just say, okay, well, nobody wants this, I guess, like that's a spiritual immaturity thing. And actually, you would have probably been weeded out by Timothy and Titus.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's a really good point. I think before you even get to the discussion of, what happens if there's a power struggle, you go all the way back and you go, okay, well, that's why there's qualifications. So there's a reason that a particular type of fellow is an elder and in that position in the first place, because they do, like, just by nature of those qualifications, they come to the table with this understanding of, this generosity, this openness, this scriptural centeredness to be able to say, okay, always pointing back to the Bible, always holding those things with open hands, and being not contentious deliberately over things that aren't important.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think if you get to a point where you have somebody on maybe and that's an elder, or coming up for a candidateship perhaps for elder, that's why I think maybe we've talked about this before. If not, I know we've definitely talked about it off air, where it's just like the qualifications are there for a reason. They're not there to be difficult or to make a process that's not necessary. They're there for a reason, and the reason that you should take a long time putting somebody into a position such as that is because you need to make sure they actually, that they fit these qualifications, so that you don't run into, I think, if a church is going to run into a position where, like you said before, right, somebody's close-fisted trying to ram stuff through, I would say 99.99999% of the time, the process wasn't followed to get somebody into that position to make sure they're actually, they fit those qualifications. Because if you did, you would have found out they were contentious and they were going to try to shove that stuff through in the first place. So, no, it's a great point. It goes way, way back. The problem of a split eldership happened way before you got to that meeting.
Yeah. And I don't want to discount the I realize not every church is set up the way that we are. Excuse me, but we're a small church. I mean, we have on a given Sunday, we have between 120 and 130 ish. I mean, so there are smaller churches, obviously, but we're not like a 4, 5, 600,000. We're not that kind of church. So we could very easily function like a lot of smaller churches tend to, which is lead pastor kind of thing and whatever else. But I don't want that responsibility.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's
That was cool,
120 people
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have enough time in the week, honestly, to still be a good dad and husband
Yeah.
and visit every person who ever gets a cold, right? And be a dynamic, amazing preacher, and all the things that people like in fairy tale land want in a pastor. I don't have time to do all of that. And our elders are pastors. They're just not paid elders, and so we've got a really a really good thing. We've got a guy who is kind of our visionary. He's able to walk in, and part of this is because he travels a little bit more than some of us, and so he sees other churches. I don't see any other, you know what I mean? So, but he's able to walk in our doors and go, if I'm a new person, this is stupid, right? You know what I mean?
That's
Like,
really good.
he's able to see that. He's always like a visionary. We've got the guy who's a financial guy, and he's our Dave Ramsey teacher and whatever else. And so he's the guy that when all of us get excited because Dave has this idea, Irv is the guy that says, oh yeah, but that's 4 years of a budget, guys, right? Like, he's the guy that's like, okay, everybody calm down, I like the idea. And then we've got another guy who is like, I feel like God has him there just to go, okay, you guys need to stop sinning, right? I mean, like he is this guy. Like, there was one time that our elder meetings on Monday mornings were beginning to have less prayer time, right, over time. And he called it out at one point. He was like, I just, we haven't been praying like we used to.
He's the prophet in the background. Woe to the elder board.
Right. Yeah, all of us are like, oh yeah, you're right, Ben. And so then so we've got this dynamic thing where people, we know the roles that we have. And I mean, it's going to come up here pretty quick. We're already beginning to talk about a couple of other people. What does that look like? But we're going to ferociously guard what we have, because we're going to add to the qualifications to be an elder at Hillside, essentially. And we've talked about this before, you and I have, and probably on air, but there's this idea also that, like, if you meet all the qualifications that are listed in Timothy and Titus, but you don't necessarily agree or fit in the direction that our church is going, and the steam that is pushing the engine and all of that, well, then it's a lose-lose, right? So that's not going to work either. You can maybe be a deacon and be a over ministry or something like that. It doesn't mean you don't have a role to play. It just means you need to agree with where we're going, not have the same personality, because that would be boring and we'd be a mess. But definitely we all need to be on the same page and moving forward.
Yeah. So I think that'd be a good way to kind of segue into that and kind of work toward the end of this episode here, where it's one of those things where, so we're talking about the power structure and, how to avoid some sort of contention there that's not necessary. And it's one of those things where I think as an elder board, right, and even I've talked to my pastor about this before as well, where you can see sometimes that people will come into a church and their sole goal is to like get into leadership so that they can, they have this power issue, or they want to direct it somewhere else. So it's one of those things where I think as an elder board, one, even as a pastor, you have to have that discernment to say, like you said, okay, well, you meet all of this, but you disagree totally on this secondary issue, which isn't salvific, but if you on here, that's going to, like, that then puts a stick in the wheel of the direction that we're trying to head here.
Yeah.
And that's an unnecessary stick to have, because we've already, it doesn't need to be there. You're just going to cause more strife eventually going forward. So 2 questions here. One, if a church isn't set up this way, which again, I mean, the denominations people are in, that course is pretty much already set. But if they're not, so how would you suggest maybe setting up this elder board? And 2, the discernment that you use, or you guys use specifically, in order to maybe prevent strife that you can be like, if we do this now, that's going to cause issues down the road?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, so the first part of that question, how do you get there? I mean, I think our journey to get where we are was not a fun one, because it involved a lot of contention over a period. It involved a pastor being let go. It involved a lot of strife, right?
Yeah.
However, I think that you could potentially get there the good way, but it will take some people being really godly and humble about it.
Yeah.
It might take some people going, you know what, based on the direction that you're talking about, I don't think I should be an elder. I mean, which takes a mature believer who probably should be
like, I'm just
involved,
gonna,
who probably should be involved in something else. And because that's maturity, right?
Yeah.
The struggle is that a lot of times, if you're not in that boat, then you're the church that it's going to be a contentious fight. So I think if you're in that spot, my best advice is, maybe bring it up, just start talking about things from that point of view, like the lenses that you see through, to start looking at issues and seeing, like, maybe say in that meeting, could we just not vote on it? Can we just go back and pray about it? And then, you know what I mean? Like maybe start bringing little things up like that, and talking about some of the struggles that you're having with the way things are working. And if God sees fit, it'll slowly begin to work itself out. Continue to pray. Or if the other option is they say, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be an elder anymore, and then it is what it is, right?
You were humbled yourself, like somebody else humbled you.
Yeah, I do think, though, the second half of that is an easier question. First half, honestly, it is up to God. It is you being convicted. And the best situation is, many of your elders or board members or whatever you want to call it are convicted about the way things are working, and maybe the contention or the turmoil within. And then you got something really to work with, right? But if you've got pride on all sides, I mean, it's a hydrogen bomb waiting to go off. But the keeping it that way, that's an easier question to answer. One of the things that we do is, we got to get a different name for this, because it's really not a good thing to call it. But we do what's called an elder in training time. So first of all, our elders split people up that are members and regular attenders in our church, and like, you're in charge of reaching into these people's lives and praying for them and getting to know them and that kind of thing. So because of that, we know people, and so we have a list of a few names already that we know would meet these qualifications. They're good candidates. Their character is great. They're godly men. And however, as I stated before, that's not the only thing that we look at. So what we will inevitably end up doing is talking to this guy and this guy or whatever, maybe have them come and sit in on our meetings for a month or so. Like, they wouldn't necessarily have any role to play other than adding to the discussion, that kind of thing. We want the interaction, right? But if we technically had to vote on something, or we had to, maybe in some instances, if we had to talk about church discipline or something that was more private, we would ask that person to step out or leave the meeting early or something. But the idea is, bring them into the elder team, and treat them like another elder for the most part. And they might even be like, I don't
This ain't for me.
think that this is what I want to be doing,
Mm-hmm.
and great, then it worked.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
We know you're not on. Good.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a trial period for them and for us,
Mm-hmm.
to see, is this going to be the fit that we hope it will be, and then after a certain amount of time or whatever, we'll bring them before our congregation and, affirm them and that kind of thing. So, to make it legit, but
good deal.
Yeah.
No, one thing to end it on real quick. I think one of the things you said earlier is incredibly important. Because a lot of the times from single-led pastor churches, and again, there's lots of things that you can or cannot change depending on the denomination you're in and the way that structure is set up. But I hear from those guys all the time. They're just like, I'm super stressed out. I don't have enough time. I cannot get with all these people on the basis that I need to get with them and write, these sermons that they expect just to be so dynamic and so spirit filled, because they're so split. And that's one of the things you said earlier, which I think would really get people maybe thinking in that direction, going, man, is this really biblical? Like, to have just me doing this? Because obviously there's not, so you talk about pastoral burnout, you talk about, pastors' kids and wives hating the church, you just, all of the fallout from the fact that you're putting all of this weight on this individual that it shouldn't be on. And then now there's strife because there's stress and there's all this issue that could just be avoided. So that's one of the things I think when I talk to people about like this elder-led structure, the power dynamic thing comes up, but at the end of the day, I go, okay, so that can be like, that's a secondary thing that can be worked out by ways that we've talked about already in this podcast. Yeah. But I think the benefits outweigh the negativity, and plus side, it's biblical. So it's just a better way to go about it. And I think the early church knew that. That's why there was the assignments that were given and the structure that was set up. And that's why I think that obviously this isn't the only basis of a healthy church, but I think churches are healthier and better for it whenever they have, like you said, the giftedness split up, because there's no way you're going to be able to see everything. If you're a pastor, and like you said, you never walk out, you don't visit other churches. You can't, you don't have the time. So you have no idea. You just walk in your doors every time and you're going, this is all perfect, until somebody goes, actually, I think we could tweak this or change that. Like just having that giftedness set to play off of each other, to teach each other from a different perspective that you're just clearly not seeing, is, I think, vital for the health of your church. Because there's going to be things that some dude over here sees that you would have never seen in a million years. And that helps you guys. So
yeah,
anyway.
I think that just real quick, I know we got to end, but I think that one of the mistakes that churches make is just getting through today. So we're not, the reason that we're able to think like you're talking is because we're not trying to just do the same stuff that we did in 2019 and 2020 and this year and get through it. And, oh, what's this ministry going to do this year? And we're always thinking toward the future, not so that we can become a mega church, but just because we don't ever feel like we've arrived or that we're doing it right enough, or that, and as the culture in our town changes a little bit, the ministries are probably going to need to change a little. Like you have to think fluidly about how the method, not the message, but the method, right? And how you might go about doing things. And so when you don't have that mindset, when you just are like, when you're just stuck kind of in the same things over and over again, and it's Groundhog Day and you're cool with that, right? Then what you end up with is, hey, so-and-so's been here forever. Let's see if they'll be an elder. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter as much about the dynamics among the elder team or whatever. It doesn't have to matter as much because you're just trying to vote on a WANA budget or something. You know what I mean?
Here's a mirror. Breathe in front of it. Yep, you're good. All right.
Right. Which, by the way, is not one of the qualifications.
Being alive.
I guess it's assumed. I don't know. I'm
Good
a literalist.
So good deal. No, and I hopefully guys that's helpful in that regard. And I hope what you see, and I think what Rob, that's very beneficial from what you've said there, is that it's more than just having a group of individuals that, that way the power is not just structured at the top. Like, it's so much more than that in regards to how you see things, how the team plays off of each other, how that dynamic works, and how that has to be healthy. It's not just a matter of, well, this is biblical, we have elders, what else do you want us to do? Like, it's this, there's so much more to that actually prevents that, the power dynamic or that power structure whenever it's done in a way that's beneficial for everybody in the church, and not just like, well, we did what we were supposed to do, why isn't it working? Like, there's more to it than that. So good deal, guys. Well, hey, thank you guys for listening, watching. For those of you guys that watch, it still amazes me that you watch our dumb faces this whole time, but I appreciate it. So we'll talk to you next week. See ya.